Every pork chop suffers the same problem: dry, chewy, flavorless. This recipe today is so much better than any other pork chop I've had, it's like discovering porcine gold. Let's fix it. I bought this beautiful thick cut bone-in pork chop. We'll start off by salting it up with some kosher salt. Not only are we adding seasoning, we're dehydrating the outside surface of the meat. This will lead to a better sear. As an added bonus, the salt increases tenderness by relaxing the protein structure. So we'll salt the other side too. Eight to 12 hours is best. I think I'm going to have time for about 6 hours today. Coming out of the fridge 6 hours later. It doesn't look a whole lot different at first, but the surface of the meat, it feels sticky now, and also if I tilt it up, you can see how the salt has pulled out a lot of moisture from the meat.
Don't mess with me, pork chop.
While the pork chop is coming up to room temperature, I'm going to prepare 2 Opal apples for the apple topping. This also means I get to use my antique apple peeler. This thing is so cool. You just pop an apple on, crank the handle, and you can see the peeling comes off, all in one piece. You can see that peeler did a really nice job. Next, I'm going to slice off the bottom and the top of the apple so I can core and slice it. It's really important to have apple pieces all the same size so they cook evenly. That's why I like using this apple wedger. Yes, that's what it's called. I get 10 equal sized wedges. So after giving my apple the wedgie treatment, I'm just going to clean up the pieces a little bit and cut them up a little smaller. Not only are these Opal apples the perfect balance between sweet and tart, but they're also non-browning, so I can slice them early and leave them on the counter and not stress. My other apple gets the wedgie treatment too. Then I'll clean up the wedges a little and slice them in half. Then we'll head to the stove. I'm using a stainless steel pan today to try and get maximum sear. This is one of my favorite kitchen tricks, throwing water in the pan to see if it's hot. If we see the water rolling like this, it's the Leidenfrost effect. And we know the pan is ready to cook. I have a stubborn ball of water that won't evaporate. I get tired of waiting, so I'm just going to add the avocado oil, and then we'll get the water that way. Initially, the water won't mix with the oil. I'll just give it a little help. Don't try that at home, folks. Remember, I am a trained professional. I should probably mention that I'm using avocado oil because I want to sear around 400 to 450 degrees. While I sear the pork chop, I'm going to use my laser thermometer to monitor the temperature of the oil. I want to make sure it's between 400 and 450 degrees Fahrenheit. My first temperature check, right around 406 to 408, that's where we want to be. It has been a couple minutes. Let's flip it over and sear the other side. Oh, look at that nice golden color. Beautiful. I'm going to add just a little more oil. Make sure that the entire surface gets cooked evenly. About a minute has gone by. Let's check the temperature. 436. Perfect. Once both sides are seared, you want to cook the fat cap a little bit. Tip the pork chop on its side and let the fat cap sit on the pan, and we'll melt some of that delicious fat into the avocado oil. If you look closely, you can see bubbles coming from underneath, and that means the fat is rendering. It's kind of like cooking bacon. After about 2 minutes of fat rendering, let's put the pork chop down. We're going to reduce the heat, add some aromatics, and let the internal temperature come up nice and slow. We get a tender pork chop that way. I want a temperature of about 350 degrees before I add the aromatics. Looks like we're about there. I'm going to add 3 smashed cloves of garlic and a nice sprig of fresh thyme. I want to make sure the spices are completely submerged in the oil so they will bloom and release all their flavor. Next we'll cover it up. We want the pork chop to come up to temperature slowly and evenly. 3 minutes later, let's take a look. Let's check the pan temperature just to make sure. 326 degrees, that's perfect. So let's flip it over. Oh, the color of that sear is just gorgeous. Is anyone else getting hungry right now? My plan is to cover it again for a few minutes, but let's check the temperature first and see how hot it is. So the meat temperature is currently about 115 degrees. That's good. We have a ways to go yet. After a minute, I just want to check the pan temperature again to make sure things don't get carried away. Looks like we're at about 289 there, about 330 there. That's fine. Another minute and a half later, let's take a look. I just want to check the meat temperature again. We're looking for about 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Looks like we just about hit it. It's time to pull the pork chop and let it rest. The residual heat should bring it up to a temperature of 145 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the perfect temperature. The next step will be to cook the apples, so let's get the aromatics out of there. Okay, let's add those apples. Remember, Opal apples don't brown. They've been on the counter for a while, and look at that. Hardly any browning. So let the apples simmer for a few minutes. After a few minutes of sautéing, let's add some wine. So which wine works best here? Pinot Gris. Pinot Gris has the perfect acidity to balance with the apples and the pork chop. It also tends to have grapefruit type flavors, which goes very well with everything that we're doing here. I'm just going to let this simmer for a few minutes. We want to reduce the liquid by about 50%. Well, let's add a spoonful of lemon juice. Now that the liquid has been reduced, I'm going to cover the apples and reduce the heat so they slowly steam to get tender. About 3 minutes later, let's see how we're doing. The apples are still a little firm. That's okay. I do want to give the apples a taste just to see how they're doing. And also taste the liquid. It's a little too tart, so I add about a tablespoon of sugar. I'll just mix that in real quick and then cover and steam for a few more minutes. The apples are finally tender, so I'm going to remove them and build a sauce. I want the temperature to be around 180 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm going to stir in cold butter. I believe the method is called monter au beurre, which translates to mount with butter. You add a few pieces of cold butter at a time, and when the first pieces are melted and emulsified, you just add some more. This is trickier than it looks because melting butter is super slippery and the spoon won't stay on it. In hindsight, this might have been easier with a small whisk. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's add the apples and stir them in. Oh, that looks so amazing. Look at that glisten from the sauce. If you've been enjoying this video, please like and subscribe so you don't miss any future fixes. To complete the dish, I bought some fresh organic spinach and I'm just sauteing it for a minute or two in olive oil. It's time for plating. How would you plate this? Let me know in the comments.
Hey, where's my chop?
Don't you want to know your options first? This is the no veggies for me plate, but look at that. Isn't that beautiful? That pork is so pink and tender, and the apples glistening with that nice sauce. This one is kind of the traditional stack. You have the spinach on the bottom, and it gets all that nice sauce in there. It's such a beautiful flavor combination. This is more like a lunch presentation. You still have the spinach stack, but the pork is sliced and the portion's a little smaller. And this is another style of lunch presentation, but the spinach is not touching the pork or the apples. Some people prefer their flavors separate.
It's time for a taste test.
I'm going for the spinach stack plate. It took some effort, but I made the perfect bite. Pork chop, apple, and spinach.
That pork is so good, super tender. It blends perfectly with the apples and the sauce. It's just very, very smooth and rich. The apples are slightly acidic, which cuts the flavor a little bit, and the spinach adds another acidic bite, and it just rounds out the dish completely. I hope you try this recipe at home. It is super delicious. Thanks for watching.